Prologue. In the deep heart of the Carpathian Mountains, beneath a silver-blooded moon, the howls of werewolves echoed through the ancient pines. For centuries, the royal bloodline of House Dragomir had ruled over the Lycan kingdom, bound by sacred oaths and mystical power. But peace had grown thin, and enemies, both mortal and monstrous, circled like vultures over a dying empire. The royal seer spoke of an impending war, one that would decimate the Lycans unless a forbidden alliance was forged with the criminal underworld of the human realm. And so, a contract was written in blood and sealed with magic. The Alpha Prince, heir to the throne, would wed the daughter of the most ruthless Mafia don in Eastern Europe, a human girl unaware of the beast lurking within her. Not just a marriage of politics, but of destiny. Not just a bride, but a hidden weapon. And she had no idea. Chapter 1. Verona Santoro stood in front of a full-length mirror in her father's sprawling estate in Sicily, her hands trembling as a seamstress fastened the final pearl on her engagement dress. Ivory lace clung to her curves, a cruel irony considering the dress wasn't made for love, it was made for a deal. "Turn," the seamstress whispered, tugging the fabric tighter. Verona obeyed, her eyes vacant. Outside, limousines lined the marble driveway. Inside, men with serpent tattoos and concealed pistols roamed the halls, her father's soldiers. The scent of expensive cigars and blood money clung to every inch of this house. She was the Mafia princess, yes, but she was also a prisoner. Tonight she would be introduced as the fiancé of Prince Kael Dragomir, a man she had never met. A prince with a reputation steeped in violence, whispers of savagery, and an aura of something otherworldly. "Are you scared?" her cousin Alessia asked, her voice low, her green eyes shimmering with something unreadable. Verona nodded once, slowly. Alessia stepped closer. "They say he's cursed, that his kind hunts by moonlight and drinks the soul of his bride." Verona gave a breathless laugh. "And you believe in monsters?" Her cousin didn't answer, but Verona would soon learn. Monsters were real, and she was about to marry one. Chapter 2. The arrival of Prince Kael was an event out of myth. Black sedans bearing silver insignias rolled into the Santoro compound under heavy guard. Verona watched from a balcony, hidden behind a curtain, as men in wolf-emblazoned suits stepped out, followed by a tall figure in midnight black. Kael Dragomir. He was more legend than man, over 6 feet of raw masculine grace, skin pale as winter moonlight, hair ink black, and eyes the color of cold flame. His very presence made the air seem thinner. He walked like a predator. Everyone in the room felt it. Verona felt it. But what no one knew was that Kael had scented her long before they were introduced. His wolf had stirred the moment her blood hit the wind. She smelled like wild roses and something older, something forbidden. She smelled like fate. When their eyes met across the ballroom, time slowed. She expected rage, coldness, indifference. What she saw instead was hunger, and something far more dangerous, recognition. Chapter 3. The ballroom at the Santoro estate glittered with obscene luxury. Marble pillars lined the high walls. Gold chandeliers sparkled above like trapped stars, and an orchestra played a haunting waltz that dripped like honey through the air. Politicians, mafia lords, foreign dignitaries, and hidden monsters in human skin moved in calculated elegance. But none dared approach the tall man standing by the obsidian fireplace, sipping from a crystal goblet of dark red wine. Prince Kael Dragomir. His presence was quiet, but the room bent around him. He wore a tailored black suit with silver trim, his family crest, a crowned wolf head, stitched into the collar. His hair fell in soft waves just above his shoulders, and his expression was unreadable, sculpted like a cold marble god. But his eyes... they burned. They never left her. Verona. She stood across the ballroom in her engagement gown, pearls on her throat, a glass of untouched champagne in her hand. Everyone admired her, whispered about her beauty. The Mafia princess, so poised, so regal. But inside, she was unraveling. Her heart was a caged bird, beating against its bars. Because every time she met Kael's gaze, something ancient stirred in her blood. A heat. A calling, a whisper she couldn't name. She'd grown up surrounded by men who killed with smiles, but Kael was something else entirely. He looked like he could tear a man apart with his hands, or worship a woman with the same touch. And when he began to move across the ballroom, gliding, silent, lethal, the crowd parted instinctively, like prey sensing a predator in their midst. "You are not what I expected." Kael stopped in front of her. For a moment, there was only the music, the flicker of candlelight, and their silence, as if the world dared not interrupt. "Verona Santoro," he said, his voice low and melodic, with an Eastern European accent that curled around her name like smoke. "You are not what I expected." She raised a brow, keeping her chin high despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. "Should I be flattered or insulted?" His mouth curved into something that almost resembled a smile. "Almost? That depends on whether you find honesty dangerous," he said. "I do." She searched his eyes. "And what did you expect, Your Highness?" "Someone softer," he said, "weaker. A lamb for the slaughter." Her lips parted. He leaned slightly closer. "But I see a wolf in disguise." The air thickened, her pulse raced. Around them the crowd watched discreetly, but no one dared interrupt. The heads of two underworld empires were speaking. And more than that, something in the room had shifted. A primal energy, magnetic, unnatural. Kael's eyes glowed for a moment, just for a flicker, with an eerie silver light. She blinked, unsure if she imagined it. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't a request. A bride should know what she's marrying into. He led her through arched doorways and down a side corridor, past tapestries and portraits of Sicilian ancestors who wore the same expression Verona now carried, proud, haunted, burdened by legacy. The music faded behind them. When they entered the moonlit garden, silence fell like a spell. She stepped onto the stone path in her heels, the fountain gurgling beside them, roses blooming under the moon. It should have been romantic, but the tension between them made it dangerous. "You don't speak like a prince," she said softly. "That's because I was raised for war," he replied. "Not poetry." He stopped, turning to her fully. The moon framed his face in light and shadow. "You should know what you're marrying into, Verona." "You mean the politics?" she asked. "The power plays?" "I've grown up with those." "No," he said. "I mean the truth." He stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of his body, the energy beneath his skin. "There are things you don't know. About me. About my kind. I've heard the rumors," she said, a brave tilt to her chin, "that your family is cursed, that you turn into beasts." A long silence. He didn't deny it. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a silver coin engraved with a sigil, a wolf biting the moon. He pressed it into her palm. "This is the seal of my house. Take it. Keep it close. You'll need it soon." Her brows furrowed. "What does it do?" "It protects you," he said. "From the others." "Others? There are things worse than me, Verona, and they're watching." He turned away before she could ask more. But not before he added, "The blood moon rises in 9 days. Our wedding will be held under it. You must be prepared." She watched him disappear into the shadows, but she could still feel his presence, like a storm on the edge of the sea. That night, the dreams began later. In her bedroom, Verona sat at the edge of her bed, turning the coin over and over in her palm. She felt changed, stirred. When she finally fell asleep, her dreams were vivid. She stood barefoot in a forest of silver trees, wearing a crimson gown. A white wolf approached, larger than any animal she had ever seen. It circled her once, twice, then shifted, becoming Kael, naked under the moon, eyes glowing. "You're not just my bride," he whispered. "You're my mate, and your blood will awaken them all." Chapter 4. Santoro Estate, Palermo, Sicily. 4 days before the blood moon wedding, the moonlight spilled across the marbled floor like spilled milk. The house was silent, too silent, as if it too was holding its breath. Verona Santoro sat by the tall window of her private study, her eyes fixed on the garden where she'd last spoken to Kael Dragomir. She hadn't seen him since, but she felt him, always, like a whisper under her skin, a pull in her bones. The silver coin he gave her hadn't left her side. She wore it on a chain now, tucked beneath her blouse, resting just over her heart. When she touched it, she felt a faint pulse, as if it were alive, as if it were watching. And then, the dreams had worsened. Every night she dreamed of the forest, of blood on snow, of white wolves snarling in circles. of a throne made from antlers and bone. Last night she'd seen her reflection, and her eyes had glowed gold. She hadn't told anyone, not even Alessia, because something inside her told her the truth would shatter everything. The estate's library was older than the house itself, brought stone by stone from Florence by her grandfather. It was rarely used now. Her father preferred meetings in his sunlit cigar rooms or on boats, away from eyes. But tonight, Verona crept down into the dark hall, candle in hand. Something called to her. She walked past dusty shelves lined with forbidden books, grimoires in Latin, ancient family tomes, books bound in cracked leather with names she couldn't pronounce. Her fingers paused on one, La Stirpe Oscura, the dark bloodline. She pulled it down and something clicked. The shelf shuddered. And then, silently, it swung open. Behind it, stone steps spiraling down into blackness. Her candle flickered. The air was colder here, heavier, laced with iron and dust. She hesitated, then descended. At the bottom, she found a crypt-like room lit by old lanterns and enchanted sconces, flames flickering blue. The walls were carved with symbols, wolves, moons, eyes. And at the center of the room, a stone table. Upon it lay a book bound in red leather. Real leather. Human? She didn't want to ask. Its title was branded in gold, De Sangue e Fiamma, of blood and flame. She opened it. The pages told the forgotten story of her bloodline. Not the Santoros, but the materna linea, the maternal line from which all true power came. It spoke of a girl born of a union between a lunar high priestess and a banished shifter prince, a child born under a blood moon. A bloodline of women who could awaken werewolf power in their mates, a bloodline that had been hunted, erased, hidden. The last recorded daughter of that line? Verona's mother, and her mother's mother before that. Verona's hands trembled as she read the final page. The child of the materna linea shall be marked by dreams, by silver, and by wolves. She shall bear the soul of the flame, the womb of the beast, and her blood shall bind the Alpha King. She shall either destroy the shifter kingdom, or save it. She dropped the book, breath stolen. Her whole life, the whispers, the protection, the isolation. It wasn't because of the Mafia. It was because of her blood. She wasn't just a bargaining chip in a marriage alliance. She was the weapon. That night, Kael called for her. A black car waited at the gate, windows tinted, engine humming low like a heartbeat. The driver wore no expression, only a silver sigil pinned to his collar. "You are to come alone," he said. Prince's orders. She didn't ask questions. She wore black, no makeup, the coin under her blouse. The drive through the Sicilian hills was long and winding. They passed through tunnels, forests, and finally reached a hidden estate carved into a cliff overlooking the sea. Wolves howled in the distance. Not dogs. Wolves. Kael stood at the threshold as she stepped out, cloak over his shoulders, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You came. You summoned." A flicker of amusement passed his lips. "And you wear the coin. I wear a lot of things I don't understand." "You will..." Kael led her into a chamber beneath his estate, a throne room carved from volcanic stone. At its center stood an ancient throne made of bleached antlers and ashwood. Torches burned blue on the walls. "This is the seat of the Alpha Kings," he said quietly. "Only one of my kind may sit here. Unless what?" He turned to her. "Unless the Maid of Flame stands beside him." Verona stepped back. "You're telling me I'm part of some prophecy?" "No," Kael said. "I'm telling you you're the key." He stepped forward, his voice dropping lower. "When I first scented you, I didn't just feel desire. I felt my soul shift. My wolf bent to you. That doesn't happen by accident. That's a bond older than our kingdoms." He placed a hand gently on her waist, not to dominate, but to anchor. "You're not human, Verona, not fully. Your blood carries the mark of the lunar flame. And if we wed under the blood moon, you awaken everything that has slept for centuries. And if I don't?" she asked, voice trembling. "Then my kingdom falls. And yours burns with it." Before she could speak, a roar echoed through the cliffs. The windows rattled. Kael's face turned to stone. "They've found us." "Who?" "The rogues, the broken pack. They smell your blood now. They'll come for you." Verona stepped back, but Kael caught her wrist, pulling her into his chest. You need to decide, Verona, he said, gaze searing into hers. Are you going to be a contract bride, silent, safe, controlled by your father's empire? Or are you going to become what you were born to be, the mate of the Alpha King? She looked up at him, her heart splitting open under the weight of truth. I need time. Kael nodded once, his voice a whisper. You have 4 nights. Chapter 5. 4 nights before the blood moon, midnight thunder cracked across the Sicilian coastline, rolling like the voice of an angry god. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the jagged cliffs and the dark sea below. Rain lashed the earth in wild gusts, as if the world itself was being reborn in storm and fury. Inside the Dragomir estate, Verona Santoro stood at the high-arched window of the west tower, Kael's silver coin pressed against her chest. Her thoughts raced. Mate of the flame, key to the Alpha King, blood of the ancient line. None of it felt real. And yet, something deep within her, something raw and primal, recognized the truth. Her dreams, the visions, the strange ache that started in her bones whenever Kael was near. The power was waking. She could feel it. And so could they. Back at the Santoro estate, chaos simmered beneath the polished surface of civility. Don Vito Santoro, Verona's father, stormed through the grand hall, flanked by 2 of his most trusted lieutenants. His phone buzzed with encrypted messages. His jaw tightened. She's been with him too long, he muttered. Should we retrieve her? Asked Nico, the eldest of the 2 men, a former assassin turned consigliere. No, Vito growled. That would start a war we can't win. Not yet. He stopped in front of an oil painting of his late wife, Verona's mother, her eyes hauntingly familiar. She's starting to remember. Her mother's blood runs stronger than I thought. His voice dipped into venom. If she bonds with that beast, we lose everything. Our control, our legacy. Nico hesitated. You gave your word, Don. I gave my word, Vito said coldly, not my loyalty. And if Verona won't obey? He turned. Then she'll be eliminated before the wedding. Kael stood at the altar of his ancestors, a low circular chamber carved into volcanic stone beneath the estate. Around him, the spirits of past Alpha Kings lingered like shadows, their presence thick in the air. He kneeled. Flames from 6 wolf-shaped braziers danced with blue and silver light. Speak your truth, the elder spirit demanded, a translucent figure with glowing eyes and a crown of bone. Kael's voice was steady, but inside he ached. She is awakening, Verona. I didn't expect it to happen this fast. You have scented the bond? I have, he whispered. But there is fear in her. She doesn't trust me yet. And do you trust her? Kael looked away. He remembered another girl. Golden hair, sea-green eyes, a laugh like spring water. Alira, his first love, his first mate, burned alive by the rogues for being human. Killed because the bond wasn't strong enough to protect her. I cannot lose another, Kael admitted, barely breathing the words. Not like before, the spirits murmured. She is not Alira, the elder said. She is flameborn, and if she chooses you, she will become unstoppable. But if she rejects you, she will fall into the hands of the broken moon. Kael's fist clenched. I won't let that happen. Meanwhile, Verona wandered the inner gardens alone, needing space from Kael, from the weight of prophecy, from the walls pressing in. She walked barefoot through wet grass under the canopy of trees that smelled of pine and rosewood. But she wasn't alone. The wolves were watching. At first she thought it was just a flicker in the trees, then a growl, low, hungry, and then glowing eyes. 5 of them emerged, tall, misshapen, their forms twisted, more beast than man. Rogues, shifters who had severed their bonds to pack and sanity, flesh-eaters, exiled by the council. They had found her. Verona backed away slowly, her heart thundering. Her breath came fast. Her coin pulsed hot under her blouse. Stay back, she whispered, though she didn't know what she could possibly do. One lunged. She screamed, but before its claws reached her, something snapped inside her mind. Power surged, her body arched, and from her throat came a scream not of fear but of command. A scream that rippled through the trees like a sonic wave. Enough. Flame erupted from the coin, forming a ring around her. The rogues staggered back, whining, hissing. Their skin began to smoke. A second later, Kael was there. He landed in wolf form, massive, white as snow, glowing silver. He tore through the first rogue like paper. The others turned to flee, but he was faster. In seconds, it was over. Verona fell to her knees, shaking, weeping. Kael shifted back, naked, scratched, his chest heaving. He dropped beside her, wrapping her in his arms, shielding her with his body as if she were the most sacred thing in the world. "You called the flame," he whispered against her temple. "I didn't know I could. You're changing." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "Is it too late to stop it?" Kael's expression darkened. "Yes," he said, "and thank the gods for that." Later that night, in Kael's chamber, Verona sat wrapped in his fur cloak beside the fire. Kael tended to her scratches. Neither spoke for a long while, but finally she broke the silence. "What happened to your first mate?" He stilled, then quietly. "She was human. I tried to protect her. But the bond was incomplete. She died. I swore I would never take another. Until me. You are different." She swallowed. "And if I reject the bond?" His eyes darkened to nearly black. "You will be hunted, used, broken. The power inside you will rot without a pack to anchor it, without me to anchor it." Verona looked at him. Really looked. He wasn't just some alpha warrior or myth-bound prince. He was broken, wounded, haunted. But he was trying. And she was tired of running. She stood, walked to him, and slowly undid the chain around her neck. The coin dropped into his hand. "I want to understand this. All of it. I want to know you." He looked stunned, raw. She lifted her sleeve. "If the bite seals the bond, do it." Kael stepped forward, cradled her wrist. "This will change everything, I know." And then, he bit, not savagely, but with reverence. Her blood mingled with his. A golden light burst from her skin. The mark of the flame carved itself over her collarbone, a crescent moon flanked by twin wolves. She gasped. Power poured into her like molten silver. Kael gripped her face. "You're mine now, Verona." And she whispered, "I was always yours." Chapter 6. 3 nights before the blood moon, northern Romania, hidden court of the lichen elders, the carriage carved from obsidian and pulled by 6 silver-plumed hellhounds, glided across the misty mountain path, flanked by royal guards in black armor etched with glowing sigils. Inside, Verona sat in stunned silence, wrapped in a long cloak of white fur Kael had draped over her shoulders at dawn. Across from her, Kael sat like a carved shadow, impassive, regal, lethal, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the storm behind his eyes. Tonight wasn't about them. It wasn't about prophecy or marriage. It was a trial, a reckoning. Verona Santoro, now flame-bound to the Alpha heir, was to be judged by the elders, the immortal rulers of the lichen bloodlines. Her fate, and the future of the kingdom, hung in the balance. The elder court sat inside a subterranean cathedral built beneath a glacial lake. The air crackled with old power. Thousands of torches lined the stone walls, their blue flames casting shadows across massive wolf statues and gilded murals of ancient battles. At the center stood a crescent-shaped council table carved from moonstone, surrounded by 13 thrones. 12 were occupied. The 13th, Kael's father's, remained draped in black since his death. Kael took his place before them, Verona at his side. She kept her chin high, but her heart pounded like a war drum. Her mother's coin pulsed at her chest. The bite mark on her wrist still burned with silver heat. The High Elder, a woman with skin like petrified wood and hair woven with starlight, spoke first. "You bring us a human girl," she rasped. "Flameborn, yes, but uncontrolled, undisciplined, and claimed without council approval." "She is mine," Kael said calmly. "By bond, by blood, and yet she is dangerous. You, Alpha Prince, have risked everything. We are already at war," Kael replied. "We need her more than she needs us." Verona's gaze swept the elders. Some watched her with curiosity, others with hunger, fear, resentment. "Come forward, girl," the High Elder ordered. Verona stepped into the center of the moon-carved floor. Instantly she felt the pressure of ancient magic press against her chest, like trying to breathe underwater. "Tell us who you are," another elder demanded, a male with silver skin and violet eyes. "I am Verona Santoro," she said, steady despite the pressure. "Daughter of Vito Santoro, heiress of the Materna linea, and bound by flame to the Alpha Prince." A whisper swept the court like wind. One elder leaned forward. "And are you willing to take the trials?" Verona looked to Kael, who shook his head subtly. But she stepped forward anyway. "Yes," she said. "I am not afraid." The first trial. Memories fire, the High Elder gestured, and the chamber began to shift. The moonstone under Verona's feet glowed with runes. The floor vanished, or rather became a mirror of shadow and smoke. Verona felt herself falling without moving. A vision. A memory pulled from blood. Suddenly she was no longer in the Elder Court. She stood in a forest bathed in blue moonlight, snow at her feet. In the distance, a woman screamed. She ran toward it instinctively. Through the trees she saw her mother, but younger, holding a silver dagger, her arm torn open, blood trailing. She fought beside a man with glowing eyes, a shifter, not Kael, her real father, and behind them, a child crying, Verona. Verona choked on a sob. She had no memory of this. Her mother turned and whispered something through the vision. "The flame is in you, my child, but so is choice. Do not become their weapon. Become your own queen." Suddenly, the scene vanished. She was back in the court, sweating, shaking, but upright, alive. The elders murmured. The High Elder rose. "The girl carries the blood. The vision confirms it. The maternal line is real. But she is still untrained," one elder growled. "What if she turns on us? What if she mates with another?" "The bond is sealed," Kael said. Another elder sneered. "And what of her loyalty? Her father's empire controls half of the human arms trade. What happens when she is pulled between blood and mate?" Kael's voice dropped into a snarl. "If anyone dares touch her, I will paint these walls with their marrow." Verona stepped forward, placing a hand on his chest. It calmed him. Barely. She turned back to the council. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said. "But I am not weak. I am not a pawn, and if you try to make me one, I'll burn your illusions to ash." Silence. And then, a slow, echoing clap. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Tall, elegant, cloaked in gray fur. Kael's face turned to stone. "Lucian!" he hissed. Verona stared. The man was beautiful in a dangerous way. Black hair, golden eyes, a smile like a knife. "Half-brother," Lucian said, bowing mockingly. "Didn't expect to see me so soon?" The council tensed. Lucian was the last surviving prince of a rival bloodline, Kael's cousin, ambitious, charming, ruthless, and very, very powerful. He circled Verona slowly. "She's a lovely thing," Lucian said. "But tell me, dear Flameborn, did he tell you what he did to me? To my mother?" Kael's voice turned glacial. "Enough." Lucian's smile widened. "No, Verona, he didn't. Because if the truth came out, you might wonder whether your mate is the hero, or the monster." He turned to the elders. "I invoke Antheme Luna, trial by moonblood. If she's to be our queen, she must earn it." Gasps filled the chamber. Kael lunged forward. "That right hasn't been invoked in 2 centuries. "It is still law," Lucian said silkily. "Let her prove herself. If she wins, I accept her. If she loses, she dies." That night, Verona stood alone in the ancient amphitheater of stone, under the direct light of the waning moon. The moonblood trial was not a duel of weapons. It was a duel of wills, of ancestry, of dominance. Lucian stood across from her, stripped to the waist, his torso covered in shifting runes. The court watched in silence from the shadows. Verona's heartbeat echoed in her skull. Kael was not allowed to interfere. She faced Lucian. "I won't fight you," she said. "Then you'll die." "No. I'll end you another way." She dropped to her knees, and for the first time she embraced the flame. It surged up her spine, into her throat, her hands, her eyes. The mark on her collarbone flared golden. Her blood boiled, her vision blurred, and from her chest came a cry of power not heard in 1,000 years. Lucian screamed. His runes shattered. He dropped to the ground, foaming, breathless, convulsing. Verona rose. The stone cracked beneath her feet. The court stared in stunned silence. She turned, golden eyes blazing, and said, "I am not your pawn. I am not your princess. I am your queen." Chapter 7. 2 nights before the blood moon, Dragomir Keep, High Carpathians. The fire had burned low in the hearth, casting shadows like ghosts across the thick stone walls. Outside, a blizzard howled through the mountains. Snowflakes struck the stained glass windows like whispers of forgotten spirits. Verona stood at the balcony of the royal suite, her breath misting in the frozen air. the silk of her nightgown clinging to her body like frost-laced moonlight. Below, the vast valley of the Dragomir lands sprawled beneath a sky pulsing with stars and storm clouds. She hadn't spoken much since the Moonblood trial. No one had. The elders had declared her victory a divine act of blood-bound magic. The court had bowed, even Lucian had fled, shamed and marked by the flame. But Kael, he hadn't touched her, not once since she collapsed in his arms after the trial. He'd looked at her like she was fire, too beautiful to extinguish, too dangerous to hold. Kael stood at the far end of the room, bare-chested, leaning against the stone mantel, lost in thought. His body bore new scars from his silent wars, battles fought in politics, in memory, in blood. But it was his eyes that were different now, hollowed, torn. He feared her, not because she'd bested Lucian, not because the elders had declared her the daughter of the flame, but because she had grown beyond his protection. And that terrified him. She was no longer the trembling girl at the masquerade. She was something else now, something ancient, something meant to rule beside him, or burn the kingdom to ash. He had never felt more drawn to anyone in his life, and never more afraid to reach for them. Am I so different now? Verona turned from the balcony, voice soft but steady. Why won't you look at me? Kael didn't move, didn't speak. She stepped forward slowly until they were only inches apart. Am I so different now? She asked, her voice cracking. Do you see a queen, a weapon, a monster? Finally his gaze lifted, met hers. No, he said. I see the woman who will either save me or destroy me. She swallowed. Her heartbeat roared. Then let me decide which. Kael reached for her slowly, reverently, like a starving man touching something sacred. His hands found her waist, pulled her close. She was fire in his arms, heat and light and danger. Their lips met in a kiss that wasn't tender. It was desperate, magnetic. Years of loneliness and longing burned through it. The beast within him surged to the surface, craving her, claiming her. But Verona did not yield. She rose to meet him, teeth to teeth, flame to frost. They fell together into the fur-covered bed beneath the canopy carved with lunar symbols. And that night they did not just make love. They flame-bonded, a ritual older than time, physical, spiritual, magical. Their bodies moved in rhythm with the ancient pulse of the flame. When Kael kissed the bite on her wrist, it glowed brighter than fire. When she traced the scars on his chest with her lips, his wolf howled in surrender. She straddled him, palms on his heart, and she saw everything. His memories, his grief, the moment his mother died, the first time he shifted, the cold nights he wandered, alone, after Elira's death, the guilt he never voiced, the fear he dared not share. And Kael. He saw her too, the little girl hiding under a blood-stained table in her father's villa, the whispers her mother left in a diary, the time she cried herself to sleep at age 13, wondering if anyone would ever love her for herself and not her name. Their souls touched. And in that moment, they were no longer two. They were one. At dawn, Kael knelt beside her sleeping form, wrapped in his cloak, the mark on her skin glowing softly. He placed something beside her on the pillow, an ancient diadem made of moon-forged silver and obsidian flame, the crown of the Flame Queen. Its history was legend, worn only once in every generation, by the mate of the Alpha King when her full power had awakened. It had been locked away for centuries, forbidden, feared. But now, it answered to Verona. When she stirred and saw it, she sat up slowly, fingers trembling as she touched it. This is a symbol, Kael said quietly, sitting beside her, of what you are, and what you can become. She looked at him. I'm afraid. So am I. Then promise me something, she whispered. Whatever comes, don't let them take me from you. Kael pulled her into his arms. I swear on the blood of my ancestors, Verona Santoro, you are mine, and I will burn the world before I let them touch you. That very night, under cover of the snowstorm, the Santoro assassins came. Disguised as mountain traders, armed with enchanted silver and wolfsbane, they bypassed the outer guards and infiltrated the lower gates of Dragomir Keep. At their head, Nico, Vito Santoro's most trusted killer, a man Verona once called uncle. Their orders were simple: kill the Alpha Prince, bring the girl home, alive. For now. But what they hadn't counted on was this. She was no longer just the girl. The queen awakens as the first blade slashed toward Kael's neck. Verona woke, her mark glowing violently. She bolted upright, her power surging. Fire roared from her palms, incinerating the nearest assassin before he even screamed. Kael shifted instantly, wolf form blurring across the room, jaws ripping into the second. But it was Verona who ended the fight. Standing barefoot, hair wild, eyes gold with flame, she raised both arms and summoned Lupira Ignis, the fire wolves of the old blood. 3 massive creatures formed from flame and ash leapt from her aura, devouring the rest of the intruders. Nico tried to run. Verona walked barefoot through the ash to him. He dropped his blade, shaking. "Please," he rasped. "You don't understand. Your father, my father," she said coldly, "is about to learn that the daughter he tried to control has become something he can't contain." Then she whispered a command in the old tongue, and Nico vanished, teleported through flame, to the feet of Verona Santoro himself, wrapped in chains of molten silver, alive, but marked. Chapter 8. The eve of the blood moon, Dragomir Keep, Crown Hall. The air in Dragomir Keep vibrated with energy. The ancient walls, carved from black Carpathian stone and veined with silver lines of protection magic, pulsed like a living organism. The very heart of the Lycan kingdom was preparing for something it hadn't seen in centuries. A flame-born queen, Verona Santoro, stood alone in the Hall of Crowns, staring at her reflection in the obsidian mirror carved by the first flame queen herself. A long cloak of white wolf fur draped across her shoulders. Her gown was stitched from starlight silk and deep crimson velvet, the sacred color of power, blood, and sacrifice. The crown of flame rested on her brow, glowing faintly, almost breathing. Her skin shimmered like pale gold, radiant and otherworldly. But it was her eyes that told the truth. Not human. Not anymore. The bond had changed her. The flame had claimed her. She was no longer just Verona Santoro, Mafia princess, orphaned heiress, obedient daughter. She was the Alpha Prince's mate, the mate of flame, the queen of shifters. And tonight she would be crowned. "You look like a goddess." The heavy doors creaked open, and Kael entered, wearing ceremonial black armor polished to a mirror sheen, the sigil of House Dragomir embossed across his chest in silver. A deep red cloak lined with fur swirled behind him, but he stopped cold the moment he saw her. He didn't speak, didn't breathe. She turned slowly, her golden eyes meeting his storm gray ones. "Well?" she asked, voice soft. "Do I look like a queen?" He moved toward her like a man in a dream, every step slow and reverent. "You look like a goddess," he murmured. "If I had a soul left to give, I'd offer it at your feet." She stepped into his arms, resting her forehead against his. "Don't offer me your soul, Kael. Offer me your truth." He paused, and then, his arms wrapped tightly around her. "I swear it," he whispered. "No more secrets." At the highest peak of Dragomir Keep, beneath a stained glass dome glowing with the rising light of the blood moon, the entire court gathered. Shifters of every rank and region stood in silent reverence. Kael stood tall beside Verona, his presence radiating dominance, but it was her power that stirred the room. The elders, even the most skeptical among them, bowed as the crown was lifted from its pedestal and placed on her head by the High Elder. "By the ancient bloodlines," the elder intoned, "by fang and flame, by moon and marrow, we name you Verona of the Flame, mate of the Alpha King, sovereign of the hidden moon, keeper of the old blood." Verona turned slowly, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "I will not rule by fear," she said, "nor will I be ruled. I will protect the innocent, I will restore the broken, I will burn every chain, or die trying." The crowd erupted in howls, not of violence but allegiance. The Flame Queen had risen. That night, after the feast and the wine, after the dances and the secretive whispers of admiration and envy, Verona returned to her chambers and found a sealed envelope waiting for her. It was unmarked, but she knew the scent. Her father's cologne. Inside was a single sheet of parchment. "My daughter, you shine like the empire I was building for you. But you forget, empires are fragile, and your husband is a threat I cannot ignore. Come home. Now, or you will watch Dragomir Keep fall, and Kael's head will be mounted on the gates of Palermo. You have until moonrise tomorrow." She dropped the letter, hands shaking. Kael appeared in the doorway a moment later, instinct pulling him to her distress. She didn't speak. She simply handed him the note. He read it in silence, then crushed it in his hand. "Let him come," Kael growled. "Let him try." That night they lay together in silence beneath a canopy of wolf-etched silk. Firelight danced across their skin. The bond between them throbbed like a second heartbeat. Kael traced her bare shoulder with his fingertips. "You should know something," he whispered. She turned to him, heart tight. He looked away, jaw clenched. "I was the one who gave the order to kill Lucian's mother." Her breath caught. "I thought she was betraying the pack," Kael continued, voice hollow. "I didn't know she was carrying Lucian's child. By the time I found out, it was too late." Verona said nothing. She reached for his hand. "You were young," she said at last, "and war makes monsters of us all, but you are not that man anymore." He looked at her with raw gratitude. "You make me want to be better," he said. "You make me believe I can be." As the moon reached its peak, Verona slipped into a trance, the flame pulling her into a vision. She stood in a ring of ancient stones, stars swirling above her. Her mother appeared from the shadows, draped in white. "The blood moon grants power," her mother whispered. "But power always demands sacrifice." Verona shivered. "What sacrifice?" "Your life," came the answer. "Or his." Suddenly, Kael appeared beside her, his chest pierced with a black blade. Blood poured from his heart. He reached for her, whispering her name. "One must die," the vision whispered. "The bond is strong, but the old magic is stronger. The wedding seals fate. One soul to open the gate, one soul to keep it closed." Verona gasped and awoke, breathless, drenched in sweat. Kael stirred beside her. "What is it?" he asked, voice rough with sleep. She didn't answer. She couldn't, because now she knew the truth. If she weds him under the blood moon, one of them will die, and the choice will be hers. Chapter 9. The final night before the wedding. Dragomir Keep, lower sanctum. The wind screamed through the mountains like a beast denied its prey. Inside Dragomir Keep, an unnatural silence had fallen, the kind that comes before war. Every servant walked with bowed heads, every guard double-checked their weapons. The air tasted like ash and prophecy. The flames in the braziers burned too bright. The moon outside hung swollen and crimson. The blood moon was here, but the queen-to-be could not sleep. Verona stood in front of her mirror, not recognizing the woman who stared back. Her hair was braided in the traditional Lycan warrior queen style, a crown of braids woven with silver and crimson thread. Her gown was embroidered with flame motifs, but she wore a cloak to hide it from herself. Beneath the glamour, she was unraveling. The vision hadn't left her since she'd woken from it. Her mother's voice, soft and doomed. "One must die. One must open the gate." She pressed trembling fingers to her chest, where the soul bond burned faintly, an invisible thread tied to Kael's heart. Every time he moved, every time he breathed, she felt it like a phantom echo. She whispered, "Kael." And he appeared. Kael said nothing when he entered. He could smell the truth on her. Fear, guilt, a secret held too long. But he didn't demand it. He simply crossed the room, cupped her face in his scarred hands and pressed his forehead to hers. "You've seen something," he murmured. Verona nodded. "I need to tell you, but I don't know how." "Then show me." He opened the bond. A soft exhale escaped her lips, and she let the vision flow into him, the stone circle, her mother, the blood-soaked moon, his body pierced by a black blade, the whisper of fate. "Only one survives." Kael's breath hitched, his wolf surged beneath his skin, and still he did not step away. "I was right," he whispered. "You're the weapon, but not for them, for me, my redemption, or my end." Verona's hands gripped his tunic. "We don't have to believe it. Prophecies are warnings, not laws." Kael shook his head. "No, they're always true, but the when and the how, those are still ours to choose." They didn't have time to linger. A guard burst into the sanctum, blood on his face. "Your Highness, they've breached the wards. The southern pass is compromised. Verona Santoro is leading the charge himself." Kael's eyes narrowed. "Arm the wolves, activate the stone sentries, take her to the flame vault." But Verona stepped forward. "No," she said, "I'm not hiding again." The guard hesitated, then bowed. Kael looked at her, truly looked, and nodded. "Then we fight. Together." The southern wall of Dragomir Keep erupted in chaos. Silver bullets streaked through the air. Wolfsbane gas hissed from canisters. Shifters howled and shifted mid-leap, tearing into Santoro assassins. The sky flashed with the reflection of ancient magic wards activating, glowing symbols etched in the air. Verona stood at the center of it all, eyes glowing gold, directing fire with the flick of her hands. Kael, now fully shifted, led the charge at the gates, his wolf form massive, black as night, blood-spattered and unstoppable. But then, a sound split the battlefield, a deep, inhuman chant from the mountain ridge. A circle of Santoro cultists, marked with runes, began a dark ritual, and with it, the gate of the veiled realm began to open. The gate the prophecy had spoken of. The earth cracked in a perfect ring. From it rose a pillar of obsidian, veined with crimson light. Shapes stirred in the mist beyond the veil, not human, not wolf, ancient creatures that had once ruled the supernatural realm. The gatekeeper stood at the center, faceless and crowned with bone. Its voice thundered in Verona's mind. The blood has been spilt. The bond has been made. The balance must be kept. One life, one gate. And then, Kael stumbled. A black blade protruded from his back. Lucian, half-shifted, bleeding, laughing. "You took everything from me," he hissed. "Now I take you." Kael fell to his knees. The world tilted. Verona screamed, and the flame answered. Verona rose into the air, fire pouring from her in waves. Her body glowed with the full force of the flame bond. Her scream became a song, ancient and powerful, laced with every sorrow, every rage, every memory. She did not burn Lucian. She unmade him. 1 second he stood, grinning. The next, ash on the wind. She collapsed beside Kael, pulling him into her lap. The blade pulsed with death magic. "Don't speak," she whispered, tears falling. "Don't." His hand brushed her cheek. "You have the power to close it. But it takes life. No, you have to choose, Verona." And in that moment she realized, the prophecy wasn't about her choosing who would die. It was about choosing which future would live. She kissed him, one last time. Then she stood. The gate screamed. The sky tore open. The creatures beyond reached toward the living realm. Verona raised her hands. She channeled every ounce of flame inside her. Every bond, every truth, every lie she ever lived. And then, she cast it into the gate, with her soul. Her body collapsed, lifeless. But her flame, her essence, sealed the gate, forever. The aftermath. Kael awoke days later in the flame vault, his wounds healed by the elders. He was alive. But the bond was gone. She was gone. They told him she sacrificed herself. He didn't speak for a day. Then he stood, walked to the ruins of the battlefield, and began to dig. Chapter 10. 3 days later, Dragomir Keep, Queen's Chamber. Kael's POV. The scent of ash still clung to everything. Kael stood alone in Verona's chambers, bathed in the pale blue light of early morning. Her perfume still lingered on the silk pillows. Her books, mostly untouched, some half-read, still lay open. A single crimson gown hung from the carved cedar armoire, its hem brushing the floor like a ghost. She was gone, and yet she wasn't. The soul bond had been severed, yes, but something remained. A phantom sensation, a breath in the dark, a whisper in the silence. He pressed his palm to the center of the room, where the wardstone beneath the floor pulsed faintly with residual flame. "Where are you, Verona?" he whispered. No answer. But the stone beneath his palm warmed. Downstairs, the court was collapsing into chaos. The elders demanded Kael name a new mate. The northern clans threatened secession. The eastern pacts spoke of the gate's tremors. It had closed, yes, but not sealed. Without Verona's soul tethered to this realm, the ancient barrier had begun to thin once more. "She was not just your mate," Elder Merrick growled. "She was the key, the flame incarnate." Kael's voice was cold steel. "Then I will find her." "Find her?" Elder Cyrilla spat. "She sacrificed herself. The bond is broken. Her soul is forfeit." "No," Kael said, rising from his throne. "The bond didn't shatter. It changed. She's not dead." The court fell into stunned silence. "She's trapped. And Kael would bring her back, or destroy the heavens trying elsewhere." Verona awoke to silence. Not the silence of the dead, but the silence of nothing. She floated above a silver sea, her body made of starlight and memory. She had no skin, no bones, no weight, only warmth, the remnants of the flame that had once lived inside her. Above her, a crescent moon, not white but obsidian, hung like a wound in the sky. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Then a voice echoed from the depths. "Welcome to the Hollow Vale." A shape emerged from the mist. A woman, pale and regal, eyes like black fire. "I am Eliana. The first flame. The queen you replaced." Verona stared, breathless. You're real." Eliana smiled faintly. "More than real. I've been waiting." They stood in a realm beyond time, a pocket between death and eternity. Souls of past flame queens lingered there like stars waiting to fall. Eliana led Verona through a garden of glowing bones and burning trees, each step revealing memories of queens long dead. Each of them chosen, each of them sacrificed, each of them forgotten. "They lied to you," Eliana whispered. "The bond was never meant to be severed." "Then why am I here?" "Because you made a different choice." Eliana paused at a pool of silver water. "You tried to close the gate with your life, but your love interfered." Verona's chest ached. "Kael?" Eliana nodded. "You were never meant to survive the sealing," she said, "but his soul reached back. He kept a piece of you tethered to the world of the living." Verona's eyes welled with tears. "So I'm alive?" "No, and yes. You are in between. And then, more softly, you must choose. To return, she must pass the trial of flame, the final test all flame queens must endure but never remember." Eliana explained, "The gate never wanted you. It wanted what you would become, a god of fire and judgment. But love complicates prophecy. To return to Kael's world, she must relive her greatest memory, and willingly let it go." "Your love for Kael is what anchored your soul," Eliana warned. "To return, you must unbind it." "I can't. You must, or you'll remain trapped forever, and the gate will open again." Verona stared into the pool. And there it was, her memory. The night Kael confessed his past, the firelight on his face, the way he held her like she was salvation. She fell to her knees. Tears poured down her cheeks as the memory played out. Then she reached for it, and let it burn. Back in the living realm, Kael's descent. Kael had spent 3 days and nights with the witches of the hidden glen, searching ancient texts, summoning soul paths, bleeding himself into the stone. He refused to accept her death, until, finally, he found it, the ritual of return, an impossible rite, one that required blood, fire, and the willingness to trade your rank, your immortality, and possibly your soul. Kael stared down at the last page, and began to gather the materials. In the hollow veil the sky cracked, the obsidian moon shattered. Verona gasped as light pierced the dark, not warm, not golden, but familiar. A voice echoed through the breach. "Verona, come back to me." Kael's voice, rough, broken, real. She rose. The queens around her whispered, "You will not return unchanged." And she whispered, "I don't care." The light wrapped around her, and she fell. At the peak of Dragomir Keep, Kael knelt in a circle of blood and fire, whispering her name over and over as the ritual consumed him. Then, the flames turned white. The bond snapped back into place like lightning through his soul. He screamed. The world shook, and she appeared, collapsing into his arms, her body blazing with power, her heart beating fast, her eyes burning with flame. She was alive, and she was no longer mortal. "You came back," Kael held her, trembling. "You came back," he whispered, burying his face in her hair. Verona wept into his shoulder. "I tried to forget you," she choked. "I tried to pass the trial. But I couldn't. I couldn't stop loving you. Then we'll break every prophecy, together." And above them, the moon turned white, the first time in 1,000 years. 11. Dragomir Keep, Hall of Ascension. 2 days after Verona's return, the marble throne room was ablaze with flame-touched moonlight. Red banners wept ash from their embroidered seams, and silver runes etched into the floor pulsed like ancient veins feeding the heart of the keep. But the throne stood empty. The council had gathered. The nobles, shifters, witches, flame-bound royals, sat in silence, their faces masks of shock, awe, or veiled suspicion. At the center stood Kael, the Alpha Prince, stripped of his ceremonial furs, wearing black. On his right stood Verona, her hair braided with flame thread, her aura crackling with a power none could name. She wasn't just alive, she was transcendent, no longer fully mortal, not quite divine, a queen who had crossed death and returned with something older than prophecy. And that terrified them. Kael's voice echoed through the hall, rough and final. I, Kael Dragomir, son of King Varden and the last of the first line, hereby renounce my claim to the crown of the Lycan Empire. Gasps rippled through the room like a wave of broken glass. I do so not in weakness, but in truth. The throne no longer belongs to a warrior prince forged in blood. It belongs to the one who walked into death to seal the gate, and walked back for all of us. He turned toward her, the Flame Queen. Verona stepped forward. Her eyes, once amber, were now molten gold, threaded with white flame. Her voice, when she spoke, carried power. I do not claim this crown to rule, she said. I claim it to rebuild, a beat, to rewrite what fate demanded, to choose love over law, freedom over bloodlines, and to seal the gate once and for all. The room fell to its knees, but not everyone knelt willingly. From the back of the chamber, a voice sliced through the reverence. You dare defile our line with a half-human fraud. Elder Merrick, gaunt and trembling with age, raised a blade of pure obsidian, a shard of the gate stolen from the ruins during the siege. Witch-born, flame-tainted, you were never meant to sit that throne. Kael moved like lightning, but Verona was faster. She raised her hand. The blade froze mid-air, shattering into dust. Merrick screamed as his soul burned in judgment, not by Verona but by the throne itself. The crown did not choose by blood, it chose by truth. And it had chosen her. That night, in the sacred tomb beneath the keep, Kael and Verona stood before the Flame Oracle, an ethereal entity carved from living emberstone, older than the first werewolf, older than the moon itself. The oracle spoke in riddles, but its message was clear: the gate remains. Closed, but not sealed. For within its depths lies the first flame's twin, the Shadow Queen. Your resurrection broke the balance, and now the shadow stirs. Verona paled. You mean another me? Kael's jaw clenched. Like Eliana? No, the oracle whispered. Worse. She is you, unbound. You, if you'd chosen power over love. You, if Kael had not pulled your soul back. She is what the gate wanted, a pause. And she is coming. In the fractured lands beyond the veil, where starlight dies and time forgets its name, she awakens. She looks like Verona, but her eyes are void black, her hair a waterfall of smoke and cinders. She remembers death. She remembers rejection. She remembers love, stolen. And she will reclaim it, or erase the world that dared deny her. Kael and Verona gathered the high clans, the Flameblood witches, the surviving shifter houses. Even the hidden dragons of the eastern peaks sent a single emissary. All stood beneath the high flame banner, lit against a twilight sky. Verona raised her voice over the mountains. The prophecy ends with us, not by sacrifice, but by choice, not with one dying, but with all of us rising. We do not bend to fates written by dead gods, we burn them. And the armies roared. The war of the two queens had begun. That night, as they stood in the quiet of their chambers, Kael held her with trembling hands. I should have told you sooner, he whispered. Verona frowned. What is it? He looked away. The ritual of return. It didn't just cost me the crown. Her heart skipped. Kael met her eyes, broken and beautiful. It cost me my immortality. Silence. Then a tear slid down her cheek. So you'll grow old, she whispered, and I won't. He nodded once. But I will choose you in every lifetime. She kissed him, and the stars outside burned brighter. Chapter 12. Location between realms. The soulscape Verona stood alone. The world around her was not sky nor earth, but something between dream and shadow, a soulscape. The stars above were frozen in place, unmoving and hollow. Beneath her bare feet, the ground shimmered like black crystal. And across from her, standing perfectly still in a mirror image, was herself, or rather the Shadow Queen, a being birthed from Verona's choice to live, forged from the sliver of her soul left behind. When Kael pulled her back through death, she looked identical. Same raven dark hair, same golden skin, same mouth, shaped with fierce purpose. But her eyes, void black, stripped of love, hungry for something Verona could not name. The Shadow Queen smiled. You left me there, she said, her voice like velvet soaked in venom. Alone, forgotten. Verona stepped forward cautiously. You're part of me. You were never meant to exist. No, the shadow agreed. But neither were you. Lightning cracked across the black sky. The duel didn't begin with weapons, it began with memories. The soulscape shifted, showing scenes from Verona's life, her father teaching her to shoot, her first scar, her mother's funeral, her arranged betrothal, her first kiss with Kael in the garden beneath a bleeding moon. The Shadow Queen stood in the center of the images, warping them with a wave of her hand. In one memory, Kael turned away. In another, her mother cursed her from the grave. In the next, Verona stood alone at the altar, the moon black. Don't you see? The Shadow Queen whispered. You've built your entire life on lies, love, duty, sacrifice. It will all burn. And yet, Verona replied, stepping forward with flame in her hands. I chose it. The shadow snarled. You chose weakness. No, Verona whispered. I chose hope. And then she struck. Their powers collided in a storm of fire and void. The Shadow Queen's darkness coiled like smoke, shaping into swords, claws, chains of obsidian. She moved with inhuman speed, conjuring storms of despair and illusions of betrayal. But Verona's power was fire born of love, molten, golden, resolute. Every time the Shadow Queen lashed out with hate, Verona met her with memory. A vision of Kael whispering, I would burn the world to keep you alive. The moment she threw herself between the gate and the kingdom, the way the people had knelt, not in fear, but in faith. Each memory sparked fire. Each fire burned brighter, until the soulscape itself began to quake. The Shadow Queen screamed, not in rage, but in pain. You were never meant to exist, Verona said again, her voice now steady. You are the wound that healed wrong. But I will not kill you. She stepped closer, and opened her arms. I will make peace with you. The shadow flinched, and then, for the first time, it wept, and dissolved into her arms, rejoining her soul. Meanwhile, Kael's journey to the gate. Kael stood at the base of the original gate, buried deep beneath the Dragomir keep, in catacombs not walked for centuries. The walls were covered in ancient werewolf runes, blood bonds, and flame scripts only partially legible. With him were 3 allies: Lucian, the once exiled brother, now returned; Amara, the flame witch who had taught Verona as a child; and Elias, the last descendant of the original gate builders. The gate pulsed like a heartbeat, ancient, angry, half awake. I can feel her, Kael whispered. She's winning, Amara replied. But it's not done yet, Elias said, turning toward Kael. To fully seal the gate, you must give it something older than prophecy. Kael's eyes narrowed. What? Freedom? The gate demanded sacrifice. It had been fed by generations of forced bonds, flame queens offered like cattle, bloodlines bound to fate. Verona had broken that pattern by choosing love over prophecy. Now, the gate could be sealed, not by death, but by surrendering the throne itself. Kael stepped forward and unsheathed his dagger. He carved a new symbol into the stone, a circle surrounded by fire and stars, not a crown but a ring, a bond, an eternal one. From now on, Kael said, no crown will own our people, no fate will name our queen. We choose and we fight as free wolves. He pressed his palm to the stone. The gate shrieked, then it shattered. Verona awoke in her own body, gasping. She sat up, and Kael was there, holding her. Alive, human, and smiling like the world had just been remade. You did it, she whispered. No, he said. We did. And above them, the first blood moon in 1,000 years broke across the sky. But it was no longer red. It was white. Purified, free. Over the following days, the remaining clans swore allegiance not to a throne but to the Flame Pact. A new accord of peace, choice, and shared power. The Dragomir Keep was remade into a school for flame-bound children, where no one would ever be forced into sacrifice again. Verona was crowned, not queen, but warden of the flame, a protector rather than a ruler. Kael stood beside her, not as prince, but as her mate, her equal. The kingdom was reborn. And so were they. 1 year later, a private wedding in the forest of silver pines. No crown, no thrones, no politics. Just 2 people beneath an arch of flame-lit blossoms, with wolves howling in the distance and their friends all around. Verona wore a gown of starlight and silk. Kael wore no armor, just his vows. "I found myself in the fire," he whispered, "but I found my home in you." She smiled through tears. "I crossed death for you," she whispered, "but I would do it again. Because you are the flame I choose, in this life and every one after." They kissed as the wind carried petals of flame into the sky, and the bond pulsed not with prophecy, but with love. Chapter 13. Dragomir Woodlands. 1 year later, the full moon rose slowly above the tree line, its pale light slipping between ancient branches like spilled silver. But it was no longer a blood moon. The curse was broken. Its light was soft, white, and pure, the mark of peace, not prophecy. Beneath it, the Dragomir woodlands were alive with quiet joy. Shifters in both wolf and human form danced in the clearing, lit by glowing lanterns and bonfires that crackled gently in the summer breeze. No one carried swords, no one wore crowns, only flower garlands, laughter, and the scent of pine and warm earth. At the heart of it all stood a woman in a simple white cloak. Verona. Her long hair was braided with threads of flame, her eyes glowing faintly gold, though she no longer needed to draw upon her power. She stood barefoot in the grass, both queen and mother, wild and gentle, and in her arms, wrapped in a swaddle of soft fur, was her newborn daughter. Kael appeared from between the trees, his tunic open, the wolf mark glowing on his chest. No longer a symbol of power but of bond. Not a prince, not a ruler, just a mate, a father, and a man in love. He walked to her and kissed her forehead gently, reverently, as if still in awe of her. "She's dreaming," Verona whispered, gazing down at the baby girl in her arms. "Do you think she remembers where she came from?" Kael smiled. "She hasn't been anywhere yet. She's entirely new." "No," Verona murmured. "She was with me. I felt her when I crossed the gate." Kael's expression turned tender, protective. "Then maybe she helped bring you back." Verona nodded. They both looked down at the child, tiny, dark-haired, with golden-flecked eyes already beginning to glow faintly under the moonlight. She was both wolf and flame, both war and peace, and she was the future. Later that night, in a quiet glen lit by starlight and fireflies, Amara the flame witch knelt beside the child and traced a glowing circle around her with her staff. Verona watched from a distance, hand entwined with Kael's. Amara's voice echoed in the night. "This child is not cursed. She is not marked for sacrifice. She bears no chains. She is the first of a new flame, born not of prophecy but of possibility." The circle glowed. "She shall walk the realms, not to seal gates but to open doors. Her howl will be peace. Her fire will be choice. Her legacy, her own." The people bowed their heads in reverence, not to a queen, but to a future they had never dared to hope for. A few weeks later, Verona stood in a private cemetery in Sicily. She wore no crown, no jewels, just a single rose in her hand. The gravestone was worn but clean. Verona Santoro, beloved wife, devoted mother, protector in silence. Verona placed the rose down and knelt beside the grave. "I wish you'd live to see this," she whispered, "to see me." She let out a long breath. "They tried to turn me into a weapon, a pawn, a bride, a bargaining chip." She smiled sadly. "But I chose my own fire, my own love." She closed her eyes. "And Kael, he chose me, every time." She reached into her cloak and placed the original contract, now burned at the edges and folded, atop the grave. "The contract is broken," she said, "and in its place, I made a bond no paper could ever hold." A wind stirred through the trees. Verona thought, or perhaps hoped, that she felt her mother smile. Back at the Dragomir estate, as dusk bled into velvet blue night, Kael approached her from behind and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Come run with me," she smiled. "It's been a long time. Too long." They walked into the woods together, slow and quiet. And then, they shifted. Kael's form was massive, a silver and black wolf with a regal streak down his spine and glowing eyes of ember red. Verona's wolf form was smaller but no less powerful, sleek and dark with gold threaded through her fur like starlight. They ran. Through trees, across rivers, over the mossy ridges of the old battlefield. Now healed, they howled not in warning but in joy. Free, unmarked, unbound, together. That night, they lay side by side in the grass, returned to human form, bodies warm and tangled under a shared cloak. Kael traced the curve of her spine lazily with his fingers. "You know," he whispered, "some legends say that every true mate carves their name into the stars when they bond." Verona looked up. "Do you believe that?" "I do." She was quiet for a moment. Then she rolled to face him and pressed her forehead to his. "Then ours are written side by side, forever." And above them, for just a moment, two shooting stars crossed. The end. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Kindly comment below. If you loved it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.